In the earliest whispers of time, before men and Mare had fully claimed the lands of Tamriel, there existed a race touched by both starlight and earth. The Ayleids, known to few in the present day, moved with a quiet grace through the rolling hills, dense forests, and shimmering rivers of what would one day be called Cyrodiil. They were a people of subtle elegance, their presence as delicate as the wind stirring the leaves, yet profound, like the glow of a distant star reflected in a midnight lake. To walk among them was to feel time stretch, to sense the pulse of the world itself, and to hear the soft cadence of creation in every footstep. Their lands, lush and untamed, were not yet divided by the strife of kingdoms or the ambitions of men. Towering trees whispered secrets older than memory, and rivers carved quiet songs into the soil, carrying the soft fragrance of wildflowers and ancient herbs. Here, the Ayleids found their sanctuary, a place where the sky seemed to bend in gentle arcs, where dawn painted the hills with gold, and twilight wrapped the forest in serene indigo. Every stone, every tree, every glimmering brook held meaning, a testament to their intimate communion with the land. The Ayleids were thinkers, dreamers, and wanderers of the mind as much as of the land. Their hearts resonated with the rhythm of the natural world. They could sense the subtle harmonies that humans rarely noticed. In the hush of the morning, they would walk barefoot along the dew-laden grass, feeling the heartbeat of the earth beneath their feet. The birds, the insects, the whispers of wind in the leaves, all spoke to them, and they listened with reverence. It was in these quiet moments that the foundations of their civilization were laid, not in grand halls or bustling cities, but in mindful communion with the living world. Yet, even in these earliest days, there was a sense of purpose, a quiet ambition that flowed through the Ayleid hearts. They were not merely wanderers of a land, but seekers of knowledge, curious about the unseen threads that connected sky and soil, star and soul. They watched the heavens with careful eyes, noting the dance of stars and the gentle waxing and waning of moons. To them, the world was a living poem, and they its quiet authors. They etched patterns in stone and leaf, marking time in ways subtle yet enduring, leaving behind whispers for those who would come after. Life in the Heartlands was serene, yet it was not without ritual. With the first light of dawn, Ayleids would gather near glimmering springs or atop gentle hills to meditate upon the passing of time, the cycles of nature, and the unseen currents of magic that flowed through the world. Their voices, soft as wind through the reeds, carried gentle chants, harmonizing with the song of the river or the sigh of the trees. This was a civilization built on subtlety, reflection, and a patient understanding of the world's eternal rhythm. And so, in the hush of morning, the Heartlands lay still. The Ayleids, though few in number, stood at the cusp of a long and luminous history. Their footsteps would one day mark the foundations of great cities, their wisdom the spark of powerful magics, and their songs the first echoes of an enduring civilization. But for now, they were shadows among the trees, gentle watchers of a world waking to its own quiet beauty, the dawn of their story as soft and profound as the morning light filtering through misted leaves. As the seasons turned and the gentle rhythm of the Heartlands unfolded, the Ayleids began to shape their world with care and reverence. They were not conquerors, nor did they seek dominance over the land. Instead, they wove their presence delicately into the forests, rivers, and hills, leaving footprints that were both impermanent and eternal, like ripples on a tranquil pond. Their settlements rose slowly, organically, as if the land itself guided the placement of each stone and the course of each path. These were homes born of harmony, not of haste, structures that seemed to grow from the earth rather than be imposed upon it. The first villages were humble, nestled in glades where sunlight dappled the forest floor and streams offered crystal-clear waters. Buildings of white stone and carved wood glimmered in the soft light, their forms elegant yet unobtrusive. The Ayleids adorned their homes with delicate carvings of flora and fauna, images of stars and celestial events, reminders of the delicate threads that bound all things together. They built in quiet confidence, knowing that even the smallest act of creation echoed across time. Within these homes, families gathered to share simple meals, to speak in soft tones of dreams and visions, and to teach the young the songs of the earth and sky. Life in these early settlements was intertwined with ritual and reflection. At dawn, soft chants would rise from the village, harmonizing with the calls of birds and the whisper of wind through the trees. In the evening, fires would burn low, their golden glow mirrored in the eyes of the Ayleids, who spoke of the passing day in gentle prose. These moments were not hurried, nor did they carry the urgency of empire building. There were pauses in time meant to honor the rhythm of the world and the fleeting nature of existence. Every action, from planting seeds to shaping stone, carried intention and mindfulness, a recognition that life was both fragile and wondrous. The Ayleids' understanding of magic began to bloom alongside their villages. They sensed currents of power flowing through the heartlands, subtle and unseen, threading between roots and rivers, stones and stars. With quiet patience, they learned to coax this magic into harmony with the world, using it to illuminate paths, nurture crops, and create objects of delicate beauty. It was a magic that did not shout but whispered, a language of calm resonance, perfectly aligned with the soft cadence of life itself. Through this practice, the Ayleids deepened their connection to the heartlands, becoming both students and stewards of the land's enduring mysteries. And so, the heartlands thrummed with gentle life. Villages grew into small towns, and towns whispered hints of cities yet to come, their presence barely more than the shimmer of dawn over a quiet glade. The Ayleids walked with patience, their eyes reflecting the soft glow of the skies, their hearts in tune with the unhurried song of the world. In these quiet beginnings lay the promise of greatness, a civilization that would one day build towers of light, enchanters' halls, and temples that pierce the heavens. But for now, it was enough to exist in harmony, to listen, and to dream beneath the wide and silent sky. The soft light of the heartlands, the gentle sway of the trees, and the subtle harmony of rivers and stones became a cradle for memory, a sanctuary for thought, and a mirror for the souls of those who dwelt there. In the hush of dawn and the stillness of twilight, the Ayleids found not only their home, but a path forward, guided by reflection, reverence, and the quiet certainty that the land itself would remember them long after their footsteps faded. In the quiet heartlands of Tamriel, as the Ayleids' villages expanded and their knowledge deepened, they turned their eyes skyward, drawn by the gentle glow of stars that shimmered in the endless night. To them, the heavens were a mirror of the soul, a tapestry woven with threads of light, mystery, and quiet wonder. They studied the patterns of constellations with reverence, noting the subtle movements of celestial bodies, and felt their lives harmonize with the rhythms of the cosmos. In the soft hours before dawn, the elders would gather with the young to trace these stars with their fingertips in the air, speaking in hushed tones of the stories written above, tales that had no end and no beginning, only the eternal dance of light and shadow. The Ayleids were gifted in magic, but their power was unlike the forceful sorcery of later times. It was quiet, refined, and harmonious, flowing like water along the contours of the world. Light was their guide, not merely a tool. They shaped illumination to comfort, to inspire, and to reveal the subtle beauty hidden in stone, leaf, and water. In the glow of their crafted lanterns, entire streets seemed to hum with life, as if the light itself whispered secrets. They did not seek to dominate the night, but to understand it, to walk within its embrace without fear, and to draw from it a calm, sustaining wisdom. In the midst of forests, they constructed small sanctuaries, their walls carved from white stone that shimmered under the stars. Here, the air seemed to pulse with quiet energy. Candles flickered in pattern arrangements, casting gentle shadows that danced in rhythm with the chanting of the Ayleids. The songs were soft and elongated, like the slow turning of the heavens above, intended not to awaken, but to soothe and enlighten. Their magic intertwined with music, architecture, and art, creating spaces where the world felt at once infinite and intimately personal. The Ayleids' understanding of light extended to the very stones of their cities. They carved channels and mirrors that reflected the sun and moon in deliberate patterns, creating streets and plazas that glimmered in harmony with celestial movement. It was a practice both practical and spiritual, to honor the heavens while guiding travelers through luminous paths, to remind the heart and mind that all things were connected by unseen threads. Even in their solitude, the Ayleids felt the pulse of the stars in their veins, a quiet rhythm that accompanied each step, each breath, each whispered thought. In these moments of contemplation, the Ayleids would sit by rivers at dusk, watching the reflection of twilight shimmer upon the water, noting the way light bent and shifted in soft arcs. They learned patience from these observations, understanding that power without grace was hollow. Their magic, like the light they revered, was slow, intentional, and luminous. To touch it was to feel the breath of the world itself, the gentle heartbeat of creation flowing through body, mind, and land. And so, beneath the endless canopy of the night sky, the Ayleids flourished in quiet brilliance. Their civilization grew not through conquest or force, but through reverence, reflection, and the gentle shaping of light. In every shimmer on stone, every glow within forested paths, they left traces of their wisdom, subtle echoes that would linger long after their voices faded. Here was a people who had discovered the language of illumination, a language that whispered to the soul, calmed the mind, and invited all who listened to rest beneath the stars, enveloped in the soft and eternal glow of understanding. As the Ayleids' understanding of the heavens deepened, their cities began to mirror the luminous poetry of the stars themselves. Towering spires of white stone reached toward the sky, catching the first light of dawn and reflecting it like gentle rivers of gold. Streets wound with careful elegance, guided by the subtle angles of sunlight, so that no shadow fell without purpose, and no corner went unnoticed by the soft, attentive gaze of the builders. Their temples glimmered with crystal inlays, designed to capture and refract light across vast halls, creating a quiet symphony of radiance that seemed almost alive. Each building, though vast, retained the intimacy of a whispered thought, a secret shared between the land and those who walked upon it. The heart of every city was a place of reflection, where Ayleids would gather to meditate beneath shafts of filtered light. Soft chants rose and fell in gentle waves, harmonizing with the luminous architecture, as if the buildings themselves were alive with memory and thought. These spaces were not designed to impress with grandeur, but to inspire contemplation, to invite the wandering mind to rest and dream. Light, in all its forms, became a guide and a companion, weaving through plazas, corridors, and gardens like a slow, comforting current. The cities themselves seemed to breathe, as if the very stones remembered the gentle touch of every hand that had carved them. In these luminous halls, the Ayleids practiced their magic with quiet reverence. Floating orbs of light illuminated libraries filled with scrolls and tablets, each inscribed with the patterns of the cosmos, observations of stars, and meditations on the passage of time. Scholars moved softly among these texts, their voices hushed as they traced symbols and murmured incantations that mingled with the gentle hum of the city. Every act of magic was performed with grace and intention, a dance of illumination that left no disturbance in the air, only the lingering glow of understanding. It was a civilization attuned to subtlety, finding power not in force, but in the patient shaping of energy and thought. Even in the open streets, the influence of light was profound. Lanterns lined walkways, their glow shifting in harmony with the sun's path, creating a rhythm of illumination that encouraged calmness and reflection. Gardens bloomed in geometrical harmony, carefully tended to reflect both natural beauty and the unseen patterns of magic. Fountains shimmered with enchanted waters, capturing and scattering light in soft arcs, while statues of ancestors, carved from pale stone, caught the glow of dawn and dusk, reminding all who passed that every life, every thought, and every whisper left an enduring mark. As twilight fell, the cities of the Ayleids transformed into realms of serene wonder. Shadows softened into gentle undulations, and the glow of moonlight merged with magical illumination to create a delicate balance of dark and light. The people moved quietly, their presence a whisper upon stone and grass, harmonizing with the world rather than imposing upon it. Here, in the interplay of architecture and magic, in the gentle orchestration of light, the Ayleids revealed the depth of their understanding. That life itself could be guided by care, reverence, and luminous intention. Thus, the Ayleids' mastery of light became a language of its own, a soft, enduring message that resonated through stone, water, and air. Even in the absence of the people, the glow of their cities lingered, a gentle memory woven into the land, inviting those who came later to pause, reflect, and dream. In their illumination, one could find calm, one could find wisdom, and one could rest, wrapped in the quiet radiance of a civilization attuned to the eternal, patient rhythm of the world. In the soft embrace of the heartlands, where rivers wound like silver threads and forests whispered ancient secrets, the first great cities of the Ayleids began to rise. These were not hurried constructions, born of ambition alone, but careful harmonies of stone, light, and thought. White Gold Tower, the heart of their civilization, stretched upward, a slender finger of radiant stone touching the sky, catching the first blush of dawn and reflecting it across the plains. Around it, streets and plazas spiraled like the patterns of constellations, and gardens bloomed with deliberate beauty, every leaf and flower chosen to mirror the elegance of the heavens. Walking through these early cities was akin to wandering through a dream. The cobblestones beneath one's feet hummed with a subtle magic infused into every corner. Lamps, carefully spaced, cast gentle pools of light that seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the city itself. Archways framed views of the distant hills and the glimmering rivers, while bridges curved over canals where water danced in quiet, silver arcs. The city was alive, not with clamor, but with the soft pulse of life moving in harmony. Merchants speaking in hushed tones, children wandering through courtyards, and scholars tracing symbols of the stars in the soft glow of twilight. In these eternal cities, the Ayleids practiced their art of living with reflection and intention. Homes were built with both elegance and comfort in mind, their interiors filled with delicate carvings that told the stories of ancestors and the songs of the cosmos. Courtyards opened to gentle skies, fountains mirrored the stars, and quiet alcoves offered spaces for meditation and study. Every act, from tending gardens to crafting delicate vessels, was performed with care, a ritual of respect for both the material world and the unseen currents of magic that flowed through it. The cities themselves became teachers, guiding their inhabitants toward mindfulness, patience, and the quiet beauty of existence. Markets, too, existed, but they were serene spaces, not centers of clamor. Goods were arranged thoughtfully, colors and textures blending like notes in a soft melody. Conversations were gentle, exchanges carried out with respect and subtlety. Even the aroma of baked bread and brewed teas seemed to flow in harmony with the ambient magic, weaving calm into the hearts of all who walked the streets. It was a civilization attuned to the rhythms of the day, rising with the sun, pausing at noon to rest, and embracing the evening in quiet contemplation. At the heart of White Gold Tower, the Ayleids gathered to celebrate the cycles of nature and the movements of the stars. Festivals were not loud or overwhelming. They were moments of reflection, filled with soft music, gentle dances, and songs that rose like whispers into the sky. Lamps and crystals glimmered, casting shifting patterns of light that moved like clouds over stone, reminding all who watched that life was transient, yet beautiful in every fleeting moment. Here, the Eternal City earned its name, a place where time seemed to pause, where the soul could breathe, and where the quiet wisdom of a people deeply attuned to the world became manifest in stone, water, and light. Thus, in the hush of morning and the calm of evening, the eternal cities of the Ayleids stood as luminous testaments to their civilization, a delicate balance of beauty, magic, and intention, a place where every step and every glance reflected reverence for the world. Even centuries later, when ruins would reclaim these streets, the echo of their harmony would linger in stone and shadow, a whisper of light for those who chose to listen. Within the luminous streets of the Ayleid cities, life unfolded like a gentle melody, slow and deliberate, attuned to the soft rhythm of the world. Courtyards and plazas were places of gathering, yet never noisy or hurried. Here, the citizens moved with purpose, but their actions were measured, each step a quiet acknowledgement of harmony between mind, body, and land. Children chased one another through the gardens, their laughter soft as wind in the trees, while elders traced constellations with their fingers, recounting stories of creation and the ancient dance of stars. The cities themselves seemed to embrace this calm. Walls of white stone absorbed and reflected light, and fountains scattered gentle ripples that whispered along cobblestone paths. Daily life in these cities was intertwined with ritual and reflection. At dawn, soft chimes echoed through the streets, signaling the time to awaken and meditate. Citizens tended to gardens, cultivated herbs, and carefully shaped water features, knowing that each small act of attention fed the life of the city itself. Within homes, delicate carvings and crystal inlays created spaces of quiet contemplation. Meals were simple, shared with care, and always accompanied by soft conversation or silent reflection. Even mundane tasks, sweeping, preparing clay, tending fires, were treated with reverence, an acknowledgement that the act of creation, no matter how small, carried meaning. Festivals in the eternal cities were subtle celebrations of light, time, and the natural world. They did not erupt in clamorous spectacle, but unfolded as slow, harmonious expressions of joy. Lamps were hung in intricate patterns, their glow mirrored in pools and fountains. Music rose in gentle waves, soft strings and flutes blending with the murmur of wind through trees. Citizens performed quiet dances in the plazas, their movements tracing the patterns of constellations, honoring the eternal dance of stars and the invisible threads that bound the world together. Even in celebration, there was calm, a gentle acknowledgement of the beauty of existence and the fleeting nature of all things. The Ayleids' rituals extended beyond the visible world. They honored the unseen currents of magic that flowed through every stone, river, and leaf. Spell work was performed with care and intention, illuminating the streets or protecting sacred groves with subtle enchantments. Artisans crafted delicate vessels, etched with patterns of stars and waves, imbuing them with quiet power. Scholars recorded the movements of the heavens and the behavior of natural forces, storing knowledge in libraries that smelled of parchment, ink, and soft incense. Each act of learning, creation, or devotion was part of a slow symphony, a rhythm that echoed through the cities, through the heartlands, and even into the minds of those who listened with attention. Evening in the eternal cities was a time of reflection. Shadows softened, lights glimmered in gentle arcs, and the hum of magic carried in the air like a lullaby. Citizens would walk along quiet streets, pausing by fountains or statues, or sit upon terraces to watch the stars emerge. The glow of moonlight mingled with the city's illumination, creating a delicate balance of shadow and radiance. Here, in the hush of night, the Ayleids experienced a profound understanding. That life was fleeting, yet full of meaning. That every gesture, every thought, every whisper of magic left a mark, however subtle, upon the fabric of the world. And so, the eternal cities lived and breathed, a soft reflection of the harmony that the Ayleids nurtured in all things. Their streets, gardens, and halls were not merely places to dwell. They were meditations in stone and light, invitations to pause, to breathe, and to rest. In every glimmer, in every quiet step along a cobblestone path, the people of these cities expressed the quiet truth of their civilization, that to live in harmony with the world, to honor light and shadow, and to listen to the whispers of the earth, was to find peace that could endure beyond the bounds of time. For centuries, the Ayleids thrived in harmony with the Heartlands, their lives a quiet symphony of light, magic, and reflection. Yet, as the world beyond their forests stirred and shifted, subtle shadows began to creep among the trees. Outsiders, curious travelers, wandering merchants, and eventually ambitious settlers arrived at the edges of Ayleid lands, their presence a whisper of change carried on the wind. At first, these encounters were gentle, marked by polite exchanges and cautious observation, a quiet curiosity mingling with the Ayleid's enduring reverence for life. The forests themselves seemed to notice the shifting currents. Leaves rustled with subtle warnings, streams flowed a touch faster, and shadows lingered longer at the edge of the city. The Ayleids, ever attuned to the unseen threads of the world, felt these disturbances as soft tremors in the balance of their lands. They observed, they reflected, and they adapted, seeking always to preserve the calm and luminous rhythm of their existence. Their magic, once used primarily for illumination and meditation, now served to protect borders, guard hidden paths, and ensure that the subtle harmony of the cities remained undisturbed by unfamiliar hands. As more outsiders arrived, tension began to grow, though it was never loud or clumsy. Conflicts unfolded quietly, in whispered negotiations, in the soft shifting of allegiances, in careful manipulations of power. Some Ayleids welcomed the new faces with cautious generosity, seeing potential allies and friends, while others recoiled, sensing that the presence of others might disturb the delicate balance that had nurtured their civilization. Trust was fragile, and the forests themselves seemed to mirror this uncertainty, their leaves quivering under the weight of quiet unease. Despite this tension, life in the cities continued with gentle persistence. The Ayleids maintained their rituals, their songs, and their magical practices, weaving a delicate resilience into every stone, garden, and fountain. Festivals still occurred under the soft glow of lanterns, though the laughter was sometimes tinged with thoughtfulness and awareness of change. Magic flowed in cautious currents, subtle enchantments guarding the unseen perimeters of the cities, ensuring that peace, however tentative, could endure for as long as possible. Stories began to emerge, tales whispered among the trees, carried on rivers, and inscribed in secret spaces within the cities. Tales of outsiders who marveled at the luminous towers, yet who did not fully understand the intentions behind their light. Tales of subtle betrayals, where greed or fear pushed actions into shadows, leaving only hints of disruption behind. The Ayleids, though graceful and patient, understood that even the quietest of shifts could ripple through the balance of life, and they watched attentively, ever mindful of the threads that bound them to both land and sky. In this way, the shadows among the trees were not always darkness, but gentle reminders of impermanence, of the delicate equilibrium between harmony and disturbance. The Ayleids faced these changes with the same patience that had guided their civilization for centuries, observing, adapting, and continuing to nurture the luminous rhythm of life wherever possible. And in the quiet hours of night, beneath the soft light of moon and crystal, they reflected upon the subtle truths of existence, that even in the presence of tension, even in the gentle intrusion of outsiders, one could find calm, purpose, and the enduring resonance of light. Over time, the gentle disturbances at the edges of the Ayleid lands began to grow more persistent, like subtle ripples that eventually reached the stillest pools. Outsiders, drawn by curiosity, ambition, and sometimes greed, ventured deeper into the heartlands. The Ayleids, who had always moved in harmony with the rhythm of nature, now faced choices that weighed heavily upon their civilization. Some sought to integrate these new presences with patience and grace, while others recoiled, fearing that the delicate balance they had nurtured for centuries might unravel. The forests, ancient and watchful, seemed to murmur warnings in every rustling leaf, yet no loud storm came. The shift was quiet, like shadows stretching slowly across familiar paths. Tensions did not erupt in boisterous conflict at first, but instead whispered themselves through politics, allegiances, and subtle acts of defiance. Alliances formed in muted corridors, promises were made in gentle tones, and betrayals, though never violent in their execution, left lasting echoes. The Ayleids' once unbroken cities, filled with radiant light and serene gardens, now bore faint traces of unease. Statues that had glimmered under the soft glow of magic now cast slightly longer shadows, and fountains murmured with a quieter, more reflective rhythm. Even the most ordinary interactions carried a hint of tension, as the people balanced trust with caution, generosity with wariness. Yet, life continued its measured pace. Daily rituals persisted, as the Ayleids moved through their homes, gardens, and plazas with deliberate grace. Meditations under shafts of light remained sacred, the subtle hum of magic weaving gently through the air. Songs of the earth and sky still rose during festivals, though now they were tinged with the melancholy of remembrance, honoring both the luminous heights of the past and the uncertainty of the future. The Ayleids' magic, once focused purely on illumination and harmony, was now tempered with protective intent, guiding travelers safely while guarding against disruption, blending calm with quiet vigilance. Stories passed down in soft tones began to carry warnings alongside wisdom. They told of outsiders who failed to comprehend the depth of Ayleid understanding, of quiet manipulations that unsettled the cities, and of subtle betrayals that sowed seeds of doubt. Even in these tales, however, there was no rage or clamor, only reflection, a recognition of impermanence and the delicate balance between harmony and disturbance. The Ayleids learned to navigate these gentle ripples, preserving their culture with patience and care, accepting that the course of time might lead them into shadows without diminishing the light they had created. As the centuries drifted onward, the luminous cities of the Ayleids began to feel the weight of impermanence. The forests encroached, reclaiming paths once lined with polished stone. Rivers shifted their courses, and the soft glow of magic that had once suffused the cities became quieter, less constant. The people, attuned to the subtle harmonies of life, reflected on the transient nature of even the grandest creations. In their hearts, they understood that though the cities might fade and the shadows lengthen, the essence of their civilization, its harmony, reverence for light, and mindful engagement with the world, would linger in whispers, echoes, and the enduring rhythm of the heartlands. And so, beneath the branches of ancient trees, amidst soft glimmers of fading light, the Ayleids endured in thought, in memory, and in the subtle resonance of a civilization attuned to the quiet pulse of the world. Even as shadows lengthened and the presence of outsiders became more pronounced, they moved with patience, grace, and the calm understanding that life, like light itself, flows in cycles, and even the gentlest shadow cannot erase the brilliance that has once touched the land. In the quiet recesses of their luminous cities, the Ayleids practiced an art both subtle and profound, an art that wove magic into the very fabric of life. Enchantment was their language of connection, a gentle dialogue between the natural world, the unseen currents of energy, and the human spirit. To the Ayleids, a stone was never merely stone, nor a crystal merely crystal. Every object held potential, waiting patiently for the careful touch of intention. They approached this craft as one would a meditation, moving slowly, speaking softly, and allowing the magic to flow without haste or force. Soul gems, delicate and radiant, where the heart, of this practice. Not merely vessels of power, they were mirrors of the soul, reflecting the quiet essence of life and thought. Ayleid artisans would hold them beneath shafts of sunlight, turning them gently, noting the subtle play of internal luminescence, listening with care to the soft resonance of energy within. Their work was precise, deliberate, and almost reverential, each enchantment a whisper, a gentle caress of the unseen, meant to honor the natural flow of magic rather than bend it to whim or ambition. Within workshops and sanctuaries, Ayleids labored with quiet concentration. Tools of polished ivory, crystalline wands, and carved stones moved gracefully between fingers that understood patience as the greatest virtue. Each artifact, whether a finely crafted amulet, a delicate lamp, or a simple vessel, carried a trace of this mindfulness, radiating calm, subtle power, and reflective beauty. The act of enchantment was itself a meditation, a rhythm of thought and breath that harmonized mind, hand, and spirit with the gentle flow of the world. Magic was not only an internal art, but a gift to the spaces the Ayleids inhabited. Gates shimmered softly at twilight. Hallways were lit by suspended orbs of gentle illumination, and fountains and gardens carried subtle currents of energy that rippled in harmony with sunlight and moonlight. The very walls of cities seemed alive, vibrating faintly with quiet magic, a presence both protective and serene. Every creation was a conversation with the land, a soft reminder that life itself carries energy and that wisdom lies in shaping it with respect and care. The aesthetic of enchantment extended to every aspect of daily life. Tools, furniture, vessels, and instruments were imbued with minor enchantments to ease labor, sustain plants, or preserve warmth. Even simple acts, stirring water, lighting a lantern, or walking along a stone path, could resonate with a subtle, luminous hum, attuning the mind to the harmony of the environment. In this way, magic was not spectacle, but intimacy, a gentle thread weaving the lives of the Ayleids into a slow, thoughtful rhythm that mirrored the pulse of the heartlands and the dance of the stars above. And so, within their luminous cities, beneath shafts of soft light, the Ayleids continued their meditative work, crafting objects that carried whispers of eternity. In each soul gem, in every finely etched vessel, in every floating lantern, lingered the quiet essence of their civilization, a testament to patience, reflection, and a deep understanding that magic, when approached with reverence, can illuminate not only the world, but the mind and heart of all who encounter it. The magic of the Ayleids extended far beyond the quiet study of soul gems and delicate amulets. Every object in their cities, from the smallest vessel to the grandest archway, bore traces of enchantment, subtle and deliberate, meant to guide, protect, and harmonize the world around it. Fountains shimmered with gentle energy, the water itself singing in quiet resonance with the rhythm of the streets. Doors would open with a whisper, paths would illuminate at the touch of a wandering hand, and lanterns floated along evening skies, casting soft arcs of light across plazas and gardens. Nothing was accidental. Everything was imbued with intention, a quiet artistry of connection between the world and its caretakers. In the workshops and sanctuaries, artisans moved like dancers, hands tracing patterns that echoed the constellations above. Crystals pulsed softly under their touch, responding to the rhythm of breath and thought. Some objects were protective, safeguarding inhabitants from harm without disrupting the calm of life. Others were reflective, capturing the subtle light of the sun, moon, and stars, and scattering it across stone floors and polished surfaces in gentle displays of radiant beauty. Each enchantment was a meditation, a slow and deliberate act that balanced power with grace, allowing the city itself to hum with the quiet energy of life carefully tended. Artifacts of this subtle craft often carried stories as well as power. Soul gems could preserve memories, not merely souls. their glow a soft reminder of the passage of time and the lives that had shaped the world. Lamps and mirrors acted as gentle guides, illuminating hidden passages or reflecting sunlight into quiet corners. Even everyday objects, bowls, brushes, and tools, were imbued with minor enchantments to ease labor, sustain plants, or encourage restful sleep. In these small ways, magic became woven into the very fabric of life, harmonizing mind, body, and a natural world in a rhythm of serenity and attentiveness. The enchantments also carried a philosophical purpose. They reminded the Ayleids and those who encountered their creations that life is a dialogue, not a demand, a slow unfolding, not a sudden claim of control. Magic was never meant to dominate or compel, but to harmonize and elevate. In observing and interacting with these objects, citizens and visitors alike were encouraged to slow their pace, reflect on the quiet interplay of forces around them, and recognize that even the smallest action could resonate far beyond the immediate moment. The city itself became a living meditation, each corner, corridor, and plaza an invitation to mindfulness. Even in the deep hush of night, the enchantments continued their gentle work. Crystals glimmered softly in windows, fountains whispered faint songs of water and light, and the very air seemed to hum with a soothing presence. Residents would walk quietly among these subtle marvels, feeling a calm connection to the unseen energies that sustained their world. The Ayleids had mastered not merely the mechanics of magic, but the art of patience, attention, and reverence. Through enchantment, they left enduring whispers in the stones, streams, and air of their cities, soft, luminous echoes of a civilization that understood that magic, in its truest form, is a gentle conversation with the soul of the world. And so, the Ayleids' enchanted objects, carefully crafted and thoughtfully placed, became more than tools. They became teachers, companions, and reminders of the serene harmony that defined their existence. Each subtle pulse of magic, each soft glow, carried the calm wisdom of centuries, inviting all who beheld it to pause, to reflect, and to rest, wrapped in the gentle embrace of a civilization that had learned to weave thought, light, and life in a quiet, enduring beauty. Beneath the towering spires and luminous streets of the Ayleid cities, there existed a quieter, deeper current, one that connected the living to those who had walked the land before them. The Ayleids were a people who listened to whispers, not just of magic or light, but of memory itself. Ancestors were honored not as distant figures, but as gentle guides whose thoughts lingered in the wind, whose presence could be felt in the rustle of leaves, the flow of rivers, and the soft glow of twilight. It was in these whispers that the Ayleids discovered wisdom beyond their own lives, a delicate inheritance of thought, care, and patience. Rituals to honor these spirits were subtle and reflective. In quiet groves or near crystal pools, Ayleids would sit with eyes closed, sensing the flow of unseen energy, listening for gentle echoes of the past. The air seemed to hum softly with memory, and the trees themselves swayed as if acknowledging the presence of watchers. Soft chants rose, weaving through the branches and stones, carrying reverence not only for those who had come before, but for the continuity of life itself. These meditations were not hurried. They stretched slowly, like dawn across the horizon, allowing time for reflection, understanding, and quiet communion with the essence of all that had preceded them. The Ayleids believed that the ancestors' whispers were also guides to harmony with the natural world. Rivers, forests, and hills were treated as sacred partners in these rituals, for the land itself bore memory as the soul bears experience. To tread lightly upon the earth, to listen to the flow of water, to note the song of wind through trees. These were acts of respect, acknowledgments that the present was inseparable from the past. Through such practice, the Ayleids cultivated a profound awareness of impermanence and of the enduring pulse of life that continued beyond individual existence. Dreams were another conduit to ancestral wisdom. In the hush of night, the Ayleids would lay upon soft mats of woven reeds or beneath crystalline domes, allowing the mind to drift while the subtle currents of magic and memory intertwined. Visions came not as commands or warnings, but as gentle suggestions, hints, and insights. The patterns of stars, the growth of trees, the shifting of rivers, all offered guidance, softly and unobtrusively. To receive these whispers required patience, stillness, and an open heart, qualities the Ayleids nurtured from early childhood through every stage of life. Even the architecture of their cities reflected this reverence for the ancestors. Statues, carvings, and inscriptions were placed in quiet spaces, aligned with rivers, hills, and the course of the sun and moon. They were reminders that life is part of a continuum, that no city, tower, or street existed in isolation, but in conversation with the generations that had come before. Passing through these spaces, one could feel a gentle resonance, a soft echo of countless voices and thoughts, all harmonizing to sustain calm, reflection, and understanding. Thus, in the luminous silence of Ayleid cities, amidst the subtle glow of magic and the soft rustle of leaves, the ancestors whispered on. They guided without demand, illuminated without blinding, and nurtured without intrusion. The living Ayleids, attuned to these gentle currents, moved through life with a quiet grace, understanding that existence itself is a dialogue between past and present, between memory and action, and that in listening carefully to these whispers, one can find peace, purpose, and a serene flow of wisdom that sustains both city and soul. As the night deepened over the luminous cities of the Ayleids, the soft hum of magic mingled with the gentle stirrings of dreams. In these quiet hours, the living could feel the whispers of ancestors most clearly, flowing through the subtle currents of the land, the glow of enchanted crystals, and the rhythm of rivers under the moonlight. Dreams were not random or chaotic. They were carefully guided spaces, portals through which the past and present intertwined. Ayleids would lie in quiet chambers or beneath open skies, attuning themselves to these currents, allowing visions to unfold with the slow patience of time itself. These visions were gentle, never forceful. They arrived as soft patterns of light, fleeting images or echoes of distant songs, conveying lessons and reflections rather than instructions. A child might see a river bending through a familiar forest, and in that vision perceive the importance of flow and patience. An elder might witness constellations rearranging across the night sky, hinting at cycles of life, power, and responsibility. Every dream carried both instruction and comfort, a reminder that the living were part of a continuum, cradled between the hands of the past and the possibilities of the future. Rituals accompanying these visions were deliberate and slow, designed to heighten awareness without disrupting the gentle balance of night. Ayleids would light crystal lanterns, their glow tuned to the phases of the moon, and place offerings of water, herbs, and flowers to honor the presence of the unseen. Soft chants, barely more than whispers, flowed through the spaces between stone and crystal, harmonizing with the natural vibrations of the city. The goal was never to summon or control, but to listen, to perceive, and to learn from the subtle voices carried upon the currents of time. Even ordinary acts of daily life were suffused with this quiet reverence. Walking through a courtyard, tending gardens, or observing flowing water became forms of meditation, reinforcing the connection to ancestors and the cosmic rhythms they represented. Each interaction with the natural and magical world reminded the Ayleids that existence is intertwined, that energy flows through stone, plant, and creature alike, and that every thought and action resonates beyond the self. Awareness of this flow created a serene attentiveness, a calm mindfulness that pervaded every moment. The Ayleids' architecture and city planning reflected these spiritual insights as well. Temples, shrines, and reflective pools were aligned with celestial markers, guiding practitioners' focus and anchoring their meditations. Courtyards were designed to catch the gentle arcs of moonlight, mirrors and crystals amplifying its soft illumination. Even the placement of statues and carved stones honored the continuity of life, creating spaces where presence, memory, and reflection could coexist in a calm, harmonious rhythm. Through dreams, visions, and careful rituals, the Ayleids nurtured an understanding of life that transcended the immediate and tangible. Ancestors whispered lessons of balance, patience, and interconnectedness. Magic and matter, thought and action, past and present, all were woven together into a soft, enduring pattern. And so, as the night deepened over the cities of white stone and glimmering light, the people of the Ayleids rested in quiet reflection, cradled by the subtle, eternal resonance of their ancestors, finding peace and wisdom in the gentle flow of time, memory, and the luminous currents of the world around them. As centuries passed, the luminous cities of the Ayleids, once vibrant and alive with gentle magic, began to feel the subtle weight of time. The glow of crystal lanterns softened, fountains whispered more quietly, and the stones themselves seemed to sigh beneath the passage of countless seasons. The forests, patient and unhurried, crept slowly along the edges of streets and plazas, their roots entwining with cobblestones, their leaves brushing the arches of towers that had once gleamed like stars. The harmony that had defined the civilization remained, yet it carried a quiet melancholy, a sense that even light fades if left unchecked. The decline was not sudden, nor marked by violence or clamor. It unfolded like the gentle descent of twilight, gradual and inevitable, a reminder of impermanence. Trade slowed at the city gates, fewer travelers wandered through the gardens, and the hum of magic, once constant, became intermittent. Scholars recorded their thoughts with increasing solemnity, preserving knowledge and rituals as if aware that these treasures might soon outlast their practitioners. In the quiet streets, the Ayleids walked with soft reverence, mindful of the delicate echoes of their ancestors, tending gardens and fountains with care even as the world shifted around them. Abandoned structures began to dot the city's edges. Crystalline windows, once carefully polished, dulled with dust and rain. Courtyards became overgrown with wildflowers and ivy, their beauty now tinged with the softness of neglect. The rivers that had been channeled so precisely began to follow gentler courses, carving new channels through the landscape, while the moonlight cast longer, more contemplative shadows across plazas that had once thrummed with quiet life. And yet, in this slow decay, there was still profound grace. Each ruin held a story, a memory of patient work, wisdom, and reverence, reminding all who walk there that beauty need not be permanent to endure in spirit. The people themselves adapted to these changing rhythms. They moved more slowly through streets where echoes of laughter had long faded, performed rituals with added care, and allowed themselves to listen more closely to the whispers of the forests reclaiming the land. Magic, once abundant and flowing, became subtle and protective, a quiet current that preserved knowledge and comfort rather than asserting dominion. Lamps glimmered faintly in homes. Fountains continued to sing softly, and the stones of their cities seemed to hum with the memory of centuries, holding the calm presence of those who had shaped them with patience and reverence. Even in the hush of twilight, the Ayleids reflected upon the fleeting nature of their glory. They understood that impermanence was not loss, but transformation. The encroaching forests, the slow dimming of light, and the retreat of travelers were not failures, but part of the eternal rhythm of life and time. The cities, even as they softened into ruin, remained sanctuaries of memory, magic, and reflection, places where the resonance of patience and care lingered in stone, water, and air. In these quiet moments, beneath the gentle glow of the fading sun, the Ayleids embraced the twilight of their civilization with calm understanding, honoring the past while moving softly toward what must inevitably come. The decline of the Ayleid civilization continued, subtle and unhurried, like shadows lengthening at dusk. Cities that had once glimmered with crystal towers and radiant streets now softened into the embrace of nature. Ivy curled around stone arches, moss crept along cobblestones, and trees slowly claimed courtyards once filled with gardens of precise symmetry. The rivers, once guided with meticulous care, meandered gently through abandoned plazas, carrying reflections of towers that had begun to crumble into quiet ruin. Even the air seemed to sigh with remembrance, holding the faint hum of magic that had long nurtured both stone and soul. The inhabitants of these twilight cities moved with quiet dignity, aware of the impermanence that surrounded them. Scholars recorded histories in dimly lit chambers, preserving knowledge of enchantments, rituals, and stories of ancestors. Artisans worked slowly, shaping vessels and crystals with care, knowing their efforts might outlast the world they had built. The people no longer sought to expand or dominate. Their purpose was reflection, preservation, and gentle stewardship. Each act of daily life, from tending a lantern to tracing the lines of a fountain, carried reverence for both the present and the legacy of all who had come before. Festivals persisted, though in more subdued form. The soft glow of lanterns illuminated plazas where laughter was replaced by murmured songs and gentle dances. Music, delicate and flowing, mingled with the whisper of wind through the trees, creating a harmony of memory and presence. Citizens honored the cycles of sun and moon, the shifts of rivers, and the passage of seasons, understanding that life, like their cities, was subject to change. Even in celebration, there was calm reflection, a recognition that the fading glory of the Ayleids was not loss, but transformation into something quieter, subtler, and enduring in essence. The forest slowly reclaimed its dominion, weaving roots through the foundations of abandoned homes and curling leaves over cracked windows. Wildlife returned to the streets, birds nesting in crumbling towers, deer wandering through empty courtyards, and insects buzzing softly among the flowers that grew untended. The natural world did not erase the presence of the Ayleids, but absorbed it, carrying echoes of their magic, wisdom, and care into the land itself. In this reclamation, there was a quiet beauty, a gentle reminder that even the most permanent creations eventually return to the embrace of life from which they emerged. Magic, too, persisted in softened currents. Floating orbs glimmered faintly in darkened corridors. Fountains whispered gentle songs, and crystalline windows refracted moonlight in muted arcs. The Ayleids had learned to harmonize with impermanence, channeling their magic not for power, but for memory, comfort, and reflection. Even as the cities dimmed and their population waned, the essence of the civilization endured in whispers of stone, water, and air, soft, luminous echoes of a people who had once mastered light, enchantment, and the delicate balance between presence and absence. And so, in these final centuries, the twilight of Ayleid glory was neither mournful nor frantic, but meditative. Life slowed, shadows lengthened, and the forest and magic moved in quiet harmony with the enduring stones. The people, attuned to the rhythm of impermanence, walked softly, listened closely, and allowed the slow, inevitable transformation of their world. In doing so, they left behind not just ruins, but a legacy of patience, reflection, and calm. A civilization whose quiet brilliance would whisper to the heartlands and to those who walked among their remnants for ages to come. Even as the cities of the Ayleids slowly surrendered to the forest, the magic that once flourished within them lingered like a gentle murmur, subtle and enduring. Crystals, fountains, and lanterns still glimmered faintly, carrying the soft resonance of spells cast centuries ago. Light flowed along worn cobblestones, brushing the edges of broken arches and fallen statues, as if the very air remembered the careful hands that had shaped it. These echoes were not powerful or demanding. They were gentle, inviting those who wandered into the ruins to pause, to listen, and to feel the calm presence of a civilization that had long since passed from the visible world. The enchantments of the Ayleids were woven not for spectacle, but for harmony. Doors would sometimes open without touch, guided by faint currents of memory. Fountains murmured with rhythms that echoed the cycles of sun and moon. Even wind through the shattered windows carried soft refrains of ancient songs, subtle vibrations that spoke of balance, care, and the reverence that had once suffused every stone. In these lingering currents, magic was a language, quiet and reflective, offering understanding to those patient enough to perceive its gentle flow. Artifacts, long abandoned by living hands, retained traces of their enchantments. Crystal orbs glimmered with soft, pulsating light. Lamps floated with unhurried motion, and vessels hummed faintly, as if recalling the rituals for which they were made. Each object told a story of intent, care, and meticulous craftsmanship, echoing the philosophy of the Ayleids, that magic is most profound when it nurtures, reflects, and harmonizes, rather than dominating. To walk among these objects was to witness the calm endurance of thought and action, the quiet imprint of a people attuned to the pulse of the world. Nature intertwined with these echoes, amplifying the subtle magic in unexpected ways. Moss growing across walls shimmered under the light of floating crystals. Flowers blossomed with gentle luminescence in shaded courtyards. Streams, once channeled with precision, carried reflections of enchantments along their soft curves. Even in decay, the cities radiated calm, a quiet proof that the Ayleid's work had been more than physical. Magic, like care and intention, could endure far beyond the presence of those who had created it. Wandering these spaces at night, one could sense a conversation between the past and present. Shadows played softly across walls, responding to the lingering enchantments. The moonlight danced with crystal glows, and the faint hum of forgotten spells created a lullaby that wrapped the land in serenity. Visitors, whether scholars, travelers, or the occasional dreamer, were gently reminded of impermanence, reflection, and the quiet power of careful action. The echoes of magic, calm and deliberate, carried wisdom without words, guiding the mind toward stillness, the heart toward reflection, and the spirit toward rest. Thus, even as forests claimed stone and fountains fell silent, the Ayleid's magic endured as whispers, soft currents, and subtle illuminations. It lingered in the air, water, and light, a testament to a civilization that had woven thought, craft, and reverence into every corner of its world. The echoes of their presence remained gentle, patient, and meditative, inviting all who entered these ancient cities to pause, breathe, and rest in the luminous calm of a civilization that had mastered the delicate art of harmonizing life and magic. In the quiet aftermath of centuries, the magic of the Ayleids lingered in subtle whispers, weaving through abandoned halls, overgrown courtyards, and broken towers. Spells cast long ago moved with gentle persistence, flowing like hidden streams beneath stone and crystal. The air carried the soft hum of energy, almost imperceptible, a reminder that the land had been shaped not only by hands, but by intention, thought, and reverence. Each glow, each vibration, spoke of a civilization that had learned to harmonize existence with the unseen currents that bind all life together. The ruins themselves seemed alive, though softly, without movement beyond the slow play of light and shadow. Crystals refracted moonlight into muted rainbows across walls. Fountains murmured gentle refrains, and lanterns, suspended on cracked chains, floated with an almost sentient grace. Even corridors once bustling with careful steps now echoed only with the faintest resonance. Yet these echoes were calm and deliberate, a lullaby of memory and energy, preserving the presence of the Ayleids in a language only the patient could read. Nature and magic entwined gracefully. Moss and vines absorbed the residual power of enchantments, glowing faintly in darkness, while flowers bloomed in harmonious patterns, responding to currents invisible to casual eyes. Streams trickled along paths, carrying reflections of light that shimmered with traces of spell work, and winds that rustled through broken windows carried the soft melodies of forgotten chants. Even in decay, the land remembered, and those who walked there could sense the enduring pulse of thought and care embedded in stone and air alike. Artifacts, long unheld, hummed with quiet purpose. Crystal orbs retained subtle luminescence. Bowls and vessels carried protective traces, and mirrors refracted visions of the past, offering gentle glimpses of ceremonies, gardens, and rituals once alive with intention. Each object spoke without words, inviting stillness, attention, and reflection. The Ayleids' philosophy of magic, that power is most profound when it nurtures and harmonizes rather than dominates, was written into every lingering trace, an enduring dialogue between the world of the living and the memory of those who had long departed. Even visitors who arrived centuries later could sense this delicate presence. A soft step along cobblestone, a slow breath, and one could feel the rhythm of the city, the hum of enchanted stones, and the resonance of rituals performed with care and reverence. Shadows and light danced together in muted choreography, revealing the quiet depth of intention left behind. Here, magic did not demand attention or awe. It whispered, inviting reflection, calm, and rest. It was a lullaby in stone and crystal, a meditation woven into the fabric of the land itself. Thus, in the overgrown courtyards, the abandoned halls, and the soft glimmer of fading crystal, the echoes of magic endured. They were not loud or commanding, but gentle, patient, and meditative. The Ayleids' presence lingered, a serene resonance of thought, harmony, and care, offering a lasting comfort to the mind and spirit. In this enduring quiet, one could walk, breathe, and rest, embraced by the luminous whisper of a civilization that had understood the profound beauty of balance between life, magic, and time itself. Among the crumbling towers and moss-covered walls of the Ayleid cities, stories lingered, soft, patient tales etched into stone, whispered by the wind, and carried through the silent halls. These were the legends of a people who moved through life with reverence, whose heroes were not conquerors but caretakers, architects, and scholars whose deeds were subtle yet profound. Each carving, each bas-relief spoke of their journeys, their reflections, and the quiet triumphs that shaped the luminous civilization. Walking through the ruins, one could almost sense their presence, a soft pulse beneath the stone, guiding attention to the small, meaningful acts that defined their world. The legends were often tied to place. Gardens commemorated those who had mastered the art of enchantment. Fountains memorialized scholars who had traced the paths of stars, and courtyards held the quiet memory of communities who had celebrated the cycles of sun and moon. Unlike tales of battle and conquest, these stories were meditative. They emphasized wisdom, harmony, and the careful observation of the world. Each narrative encouraged reflection, reminding those who paused to listen that true legacy lies not in loud achievements, but in the quiet shaping of thought, beauty, and intention. Carvings along archways and temple walls often depicted ancestors in acts of contemplation, rituals conducted beneath crystal light, or journeys through forests and rivers. Symbols intertwined with images of constellations, suggesting that the past and present, earth and sky, life and magic, were inseparable. Even the faint traces of paint or gilding hinted at ceremonies long faded. Yet the resonance of care remained, a gentle testament to the artistry and philosophy of the Ayleids. Each stroke, each curve, conveyed patience, reverence, and a profound understanding of impermanence. Legends were not only recorded in stone, but also in the subtle design of the cities themselves. Streets curved in gentle arcs that mirrored rivers, courtyards aligned with celestial markers, and bridges traced pathways of reflection and observation. Every structure was a narrative, a story told through careful geometry, enchantment, and the interplay of light and shadow. To wander these spaces was to read a living text, where each step encouraged calm, mindfulness, and appreciation for the delicate balance that the Ayleids cultivated between civilization, magic, and nature. Even in silence, these stories spoke. The rustle of leaves through open windows, the ripple of fountains, the shimmer of light through broken crystal, all carried echoes of heroes who had lived with intention and reverence. The ruins themselves were teachers, inviting meditation and reflection, whispering that greatness is found not in loud deeds, but in the patient, quiet cultivation of wisdom, beauty, and harmony. Through these legends in stone, the Ayleid's presence endured, a soft, luminous memory that continues to guide, soothe, and inspire even as centuries pass and the world moves on. The stones of Ayleid cities carried more than the echoes of structure and spell. They held stories of those whose wisdom and care shaped the world in quiet ways. These legends were soft yet enduring, tales of artisans who carved beauty into stone, scholars who traced the heavens, and healers who nurtured life with gentle hands. Each story emphasized intention over triumph, reflection over conquest, patience over haste. The very stones whispered that greatness is measured not in fleeting victories, but in the lasting harmony created through thought, care, and understanding. Courtyards and plazas were living memorials. Fountains shimmered with subtle magic, each ripple a reminder of artisans who had balanced elegance and function. Gardens bloomed with plants carefully chosen and tended, honoring those who had understood the rhythms of earth and water. Every archway, every carved relief suggested a narrative, the rise of a city not through force, but through meditation, craftsmanship, and the patient alignment of magic, architecture, and life. Walking among these spaces, one could feel the presence of generations who had moved through existence with reverent intention, their lives encoded in stone, crystal, and light. Even the smallest details preserved lessons. Cracks in walls reminded observers of resilience and impermanence, while intricate motifs reflected the interconnectedness of all things. Celestial symbols aligned with doorways and windows echoed moral truths, teaching humility, patience, and the importance of reflection. Each legend encouraged those who paused to read them not to hurry, but to linger, to observe, and to listen to the whispers of history carried through stone, wind, and water. In this way, the cities themselves became classrooms, guiding minds toward quiet understanding and the cultivation of inner peace. Mythical figures emerged within these tales not as mighty warriors, but as gentle guides, teachers, and stewards. Some were remembered for mastery of magic, some for their ability to harmonize communities, and others for their deep communion with nature and ancestors. These figures acted as soft beacons, offering wisdom without demand, demonstrating through example the principles that sustained Ayleid life: balance, reflection, and respect for both the visible and unseen currents that shape the world. Their stories lingered in statues, etched reliefs, and murals, allowing future generations, even long after the cities had faded, to glimpse the calm, luminous intentions that guided their actions. At night, the ruins carried these lessons with subtle potency. Crystal shards caught moonlight, fountains reflected the glow of enchanted remnants, and shadows played along engraved surfaces. The air was imbued with quiet magic, each whisper a meditation on patience, harmony, and thoughtful action. Even in the absence of living voices, the stone spoke to all who were willing to listen, teaching that legacy is measured not in grandeur or might, but in the enduring calm, beauty, and wisdom one leaves behind. Through these legends in stone, the Ayleid's philosophy endured, soft, reflective, and timeless, inviting all who wandered among their ruins to pause, breathe, and rest in the luminous serenity of a civilization that had mastered the art of quiet, lasting influence. In the waning centuries of their civilization, the Ayleids moved with quiet grace, aware that the luminous cities they had nurtured for generations were slowly succumbing to time and nature. Crystal towers dimmed under the soft haze of twilight, and fountains whispered more faintly, carrying memories of countless celebrations and rituals. The forest crept ever closer, vines weaving through stone arches, roots entwining with cobblestones, and leaves brushing against statues that had stood sentinel for centuries. Yet, even in this fading, there remained a profound calm. The Ayleids understood that the final light of civilization could still shine with quiet dignity. Life in these final years was reflective, measured, and meditative. Citizens continued their daily rituals with reverence, tending gardens, polishing crystal, and whispering songs of remembrance beneath the soft glow of enchanted lamps. Knowledge was preserved with care, inscribed upon scrolls, etched into stone, and stored within crystal vessels, each artifact a testament to centuries of thoughtful creation. The Ayleids sought not to resist the slow decline, but to honor it, understanding that impermanence was as natural as the flow of rivers or the cycles of the moon. Even as cities emptied, magic lingered with patient persistence. Floating lanterns glimmered faintly along deserted streets. Fountains cast gentle reflections on moss-covered stones, and crystal windows refracted the soft moonlight into muted rainbows. The essence of the Ayleids' civilization remained embedded in these enchantments, a delicate balance of intention, harmony, and reflection. Those who wandered through the quiet streets could feel the presence of generations past, a luminous whisper carried in stone, water, and air. The people themselves reflected upon their legacy with contemplative serenity. They walked softly, spoke quietly, and nurtured the remaining traces of light and magic with care. Ancestors were honored with subtle rituals, and the stories of heroes, artisans, scholars, and stewards of nature were recounted gently in courtyards and halls. Even as the cities grew quieter, the philosophy of the Ayleids endured. Life is measured not in fleeting accomplishments, but in the enduring care and intention we bring to the world, in the harmony we cultivate between ourselves, nature, and the unseen forces that flow through all things. At night, the final light glimmered across rooftops, reflected in pools of water, and shimmered faintly through enchanted crystals. The stars above mirrored the cities below, creating a soft dialogue between heaven and earth, past and present. And though the last Ayleids would eventually fade into history, their presence lingered in whispers of light, echoes of enchantment, and the patient pulse of stone and air. In the calm hush of twilight, it was clear the last light was not a symbol of despair, but of quiet endurance, reflection, and the gentle beauty of civilization that had lived in harmony with the world until the very end. In the final moments of their civilization, the Ayleids moved with quiet reverence, embracing the inevitable ebb of their presence in the world. The luminous towers that had once marked the heart of cities now glimmered faintly, softened by the encroaching forest and the slow passage of centuries. Streets lay empty, fountains whispered their last gentle songs, and the soft glow of enchanted crystals illuminated courtyards overgrown with moss and wildflowers. Yet in this quiet fading, there was no despair, only a profound acknowledgement that all things, however radiant, move in cycles of birth, flourishing, and gentle decline. The final rituals of the Ayleids were meditative and deliberate. Elders tended the last lanterns, allowing their light to dance softly across crystal and stone, a luminous echo of centuries of careful craftsmanship. Offerings were made to ancestors, subtle and symbolic, honoring guidance, wisdom, and the enduring presence of those who had come before. Each action, each gesture, was performed slowly and thoughtfully, a final meditation on patience, harmony, and the quiet endurance of spirit. Even the simplest acts, a whisper of a chant, a brush of hand over carved stone, carried significance, connecting the living to the past and the unseen currents that flow through all existence. Magic lingered with gentle persistence, a soft pulse in stone, air, and water. Crystal orbs shimmered faintly in abandoned halls. Fountains reflected the moonlight with subdued radiance, and the wind carried echoes of ancient songs through empty corridors. Though the cities were largely silent, these subtle enchantments created a lullaby of presence and memory, a testament to the careful, reflective lives that had once animated every stone and courtyard. To step into these spaces was to enter a meditative dialogue with the past, where the essence of the Ayleids whispered guidance, calm, and reflection to any who would listen. The forests that now embraced the cities did not erase the Ayleids' presence. They absorbed it, allowing life and memory to intertwine. Roots threaded through walls, vines caressed arches, and flowers bloomed in the spaces where magic and thought had lingered. Streams carried reflections of the crystal towers, still faintly glowing, and shadows played softly over moss-covered stones. In this quiet reclamation, the Ayleids' legacy endured not in permanence, but in resonance, a gentle conversation between life, magic, and memory that transcended the physical decay of their world. And so, in the final hours, the last light of the Ayleids was a quiet, meditative brilliance. It was found in the soft glimmer of crystal, the faint hum of magic, the whispering leaves, and the reflective pools of water. Even as the people themselves faded, their philosophy, art, and harmony with the world remained, leaving behind a luminous, gentle imprint. The last light was not extinguished, but transformed, an enduring whisper of care, reflection, and calm that continues to touch the land, the forests, and all who wander among the ruins of Tamriel's forgotten civilization. In this enduring whisper, the Ayleid spirit persists, inviting peace, contemplation, and the slow, meditative rhythm of a world in quiet harmony.